most part in secrecy. While CETA was open to the public was quite aware of what was going on in CETA. There was much more partnership with the provinces, with the territories. Everybody had to come on board with this agreement to bring this agreement to fruition. And that was not the case with the TPP, Madam Speaker.
Statements by members, déclaration de député. The honourable member for Edmonton Centre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, Canada celebrates Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II's Sapphire Jubilee and Her Majesty's outstanding service to the Canadian people. Nous honorons.
Today we honor a sovereign who gave hope to an entire people in some of the darkest moments of the post-war era. Her Majesty has been an exemplary and magnanimous leader during her 65 years on the throne, a reign of unprecedented length in British history.
That touched the hearts and minds of millions. And along with my fellow Albertans, we will always remember Her Majesty's 2005 visit to Alberta to mark our province's 100th anniversary. As we reflect on our history throughout Canada's 150th birthday, we also mark and honour the story of our amazing monarch. God save the Queen. Longue vie à Sa Majesté.
Bravo. The honour member for Brandon Souris.
Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute to some regular folks who once again rose to the occasion and showed the very best of what it means to be Canadian. During a two-day blizzard in the middle of December, the Trans-Canada Highway was closed and dozens upon dozens of travelers and truckers were stranded in the town of Verdun. After the hotels were full, the town opened its doors and provided food and shelter to those in need. In fact, one of those stranded travelers was renowned Canadian artist Tom Jackson, who put on an impromptu concert to make the best of a bad situation. In particular, I'd like to recognize the Mayor and town staff, Westman Emergency Group, the Verdun RCMP Detachment, the Wallace District Fire Department, Prairie Mountain Health, and especially the people of the town of Verdun, who showed great compassion to those who were stranded. On behalf of all members in this House, I salute each and every one of those people that helped, and for proving once again why the word friendly is not just another word on a license plate in Manitoba.
The honourable member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
Madam Speaker, I'm rising in the House today to recognize a young man from my riding of South Shore St. Margaret's who at 11 years old started a charity to raise money and distribute supplies for people experiencing homelessness and those in precarious living situations. Adam Graves of Brookside, Nova Scotia, spearheaded an effort to raise almost $2,000 and distribute 175 gift bags and Christmas gifts to people in vulnerable situations across Halifax at the beginning of the winter. He was supported by HoC Cottage in Halifax. Adam doesn't do this for recognition, Madam Speaker, but I hope that his actions can inspire others in our communities to see what a difference one person's actions can make. I ask the House to join me in congratulating Adam and all young leaders across the country working hard and volunteering to make a difference in other people's lives.
The honourable member for Vancouver East.
February marks the beginning of the Nisga'a Nation's New Year. The Nisga'a Snake Vancouver Society hosted the HoBA Festival at the PNE in Vancouver East in celebration of the waxing crescent moon this weekend. HoBA is celebrated wherever Nisga'a people lives. Over 650 performers from 8 large First Nations dance groups came to celebrate the strength, beauty, and the diversity of Indigenous cultures. It was a magnificent sight to behold, to feel the beat of the drums, to see the silhouette of the dancers, and to listen to the power of the traditional songs. HoBA in Vancouver allows Aboriginal peoples living in the concrete jungle to connect with their culture and traditions. Chief Joe Gosnell opened the festival, and the Nisga'a people's journey to reclaim their right to self-govern exemplifies the First Peoples' resilience. As we celebrate our nation's 150th birthday, wouldn't it be something if this Parliament also adopted Bill C-262, the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People?
The honourable member for Lac St. Louis.
Mr. Speaker, during this Teacher Appreciation Week in Quebec, I would like to thank all the educators in my riding of Lac St. Louis for their dedication to providing our West Island youth with the knowledge, skills and vision needed to build productive lives and make meaningful contributions to our community and country. Il devient vite évident.
Anyone who studies the problems of today's world will quickly realize that education is the key to solving these problems.
Review important facts and ideas They encourage critical thinking so that their students can be equipped for the road to intellectual discovery and self-knowledge. But first, they create a passion for learning.
I sincerely hope that this week will give teachers in Quebec a well-deserved opportunity to reflect with pride and satisfaction on the important role that they play in the daily lives of their students and their students' families.
I've been a teacher at one point in my career, and particularly proud that we have a former teacher leading our Liberal government.
The honourable member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, last week one of my local journalists asked in his column, do you really think our communities would be better off with no newspaper, TV, or radio news? Do you really want our only news to be clickbait? I, for one, do not. Frankly, I miss our local Kamloops Daily News. It was one of the many long-established small-town newspapers that disappeared overnight after more than 83 years. Along with the death of the local paper, we've had consolidation of major national papers, local TV news vanishing, and respected journalists leaving the profession altogether. The direct correlation between digital technology and the death of quality journalism cannot be understated. We are at a crossroads. Technology will not be reversed, but the important work journalists play in our society can no longer be diminished. It's time for all of us to spend some time thinking about how government, society, and our democracy will be held accountable in this era of fake news.
The member for Whitby.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the beginning of the 27th annual edition of International Development Week.
As an opportunity to communicate with your constituents about how Canadian investments are making a difference in the lives of the most poor and vulnerable in our society, to highlight the program partners, and to speak to local development organizations in your riding. Our borders do not shield us from climate change, disease and epidemics, or the fallout from conflict. However, our assistance does help developing countries and fragile states to better protect the environment, strengthen their health systems, and limit the flow of refugees and displaced peoples. The countries that we support today will be our economic partners tomorrow. Throughout the week, highlight Canada's work via hashtag #WhyItMatters and hashtag IDW2017. Happy International Development Week.
The Honourable Member for Acadie-Bathurst. Mr. Speaker, New Brunswick was recently battered by an ice storm that left more than 133,000 households without electricity at the height of the crisis. My riding of Acadie-Bathurst, and more particularly the region of the Acadian Peninsula, were hit hard. More than 23,000 households were without electricity, some for as long as 12 days.
Mr. President, I'm extremely pleased to rise in this House to inform you and all members of some very good news. As of today, power has been restored to every home in the province of New Brunswick.
I particularly want to thank the New Brunswick power line repair workers and those from other provinces who came to help. I'd like to thank the emergency services, municipalities and local services, the Canadian Armed Forces, the province of New Brunswick for its leadership, neighbouring communities for their help, and the many volunteers who helped all of the people in need.
I'm more proud of the people of New Brunswick, and specifically my riding, and I was overwhelmed to witness such generosity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
As we mark Black History Month here in Canada, we consider and celebrate the contributions of Black Canadians. And we also recognize the suffering and the challenges confronting Black people throughout the world. Today, I draw the attention of members to the situation in Sudan, where religious and ethnic minorities continue to face severe abuses. In January, President Obama announced a plan to lift some sanctions and start to normalize relations with this country, in spite of the fact that the Sudanese president is wanted by the ICC for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. Some take the view that progress has been made in Sudan. However, the ongoing persecution of minorities stands in stark contrast to these claims. Sudanese pastors Hassan Abdurrahim Kodi Tahor and Kawa Shamal, along with Abdul Monan Abdumwala, Isa Abdumwala, and Czech national Peter Jasek, were recently given long prison sentences in response to their Christian activities. The international community must hold the line on human rights in Sudan until we see real change. Releasing these 4 men would send a very positive signal.
The honourable member for Richmond Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the occasion of Canadian School Counselling Week, I acknowledge and express my gratitude to an important group of dedicated people who work tirelessly with our children, youth, and their families. Approximately 1 in 7 Canadian children and youth suffer from some form of mental disorder that diminishes their opportunities for educational success. Fortunately, there are professional people who interact every day with our youth and work to improve scholastic performance and their overall mental health for our youth. I urge members of this House to join me celebrating Canadian School Counselling Week and to recognize the work of school counsellors at learning institutions all across Canada, including schools in my riding of Richmond Hill, namely Alexander Mackenzie High School, Bayview Secondary School, Langstaff Secondary School, and Jean Vanier Catholic High School. All children and youth owe these counsellors our heartfelt appreciation. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Yukon.
On June 13, 1898, the Great Yukon Territory was created, becoming one of the 13 provinces and territories that form our confederation. This week is the annual Yukon Days, where along with the cultural component, the Yukon ministers, chiefs, and other leaders come to Ottawa to meet their federal counterparts. A huge Ottawa welcome to the Premier, the Grand Chief, the ministers and chiefs that are here today, and a big shout out to all the federal ministers who have been able to schedule appointments with them. The Yukon government and chiefs should be commended for their innovative, pioneering leadership in having these meetings together with a one government approach. For any Canadian who cannot enjoy the great Yukon hospitality at the Big Bash tonight, I encourage you all to come to Whitehorse in 17 days to enjoy the greatest winter carnival, the Yukon Sourdough Rendezvous. Barring that, come next summer to enjoy the culture of our 14 First Nations, the highest mountains in North America, many museums, the Klondike Gold Rush, the world's longest salmon run, and many music festivals and races.
The Honourable Member for Flamborough-Glanbrook.
Mr. Speaker, victims of human trafficking, mostly women and girls, are coerced to provide sexual services while their perpetrators profit. The Harper government implemented a national action plan to combat human trafficking, focused on prevention, protection of victims, and the prosecution of offenders. The Liberals have allowed this plan to end without as much as a whimper.
Oh, no.
Now the Liberals are preparing to remove much-needed safeguards by repealing the Protection of Communities and Exploited Persons Act. How can the Prime Minister claim to be a feminist while considering legislation that will lead to the exploitation of the most vulnerable? The Liberals should not be thinking of repealing legislation, Mr. Speaker, legislation that protects vulnerable women, but should be giving law enforcement across the country more tools for apprehension and conviction. Victim services need more resources, and this government needs to fund safe houses and long-term restoration if they really want to demonstrate they care for these victimized women and girls.
The Honourable Member for Vaudreuil-Soulanges.
The communities of Pond Inlet and Iqaluit Nunavut. There I met with Inuit youth at the Pirivik, Nassivik, and Inuksuq schools, youth leaders and mentors such as Shelley Elverum from Iqaluit, outstanding youth leaders Matali Okalik, and Prime Minister Youth Council member Rachel Smale. J'ai aussi rencontré des jeunes entrepreneurs.
I also met young entrepreneurs like Michael Milton, a former participant of the Inspire program. All of these young people shared their thoughts about the challenges facing youth in the North and innovative ways of meeting those challenges together.
Also privileged to see firsthand state-of-the-art research underway by the incredible team from Memorial University and Smart Ice, who are developing groundbreaking new ways to monitor and map sea ice, a technology that, as you know, is invaluable to northern communities. For their warmth and hospitality, and the fact that they broke out a highly prized stash of caribou meat, I say Khoyaneme, and I hope to see you again soon. Merci, thank you.
The Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, let's talk about the middle class. Every time the Prime Minister has to defend one of his cynical decisions, he mentions the middle class. He sets up privileged billionaires clubs for the middle class. He supports the purchase of arms for Saudi Arabia for the middle class. He gives tax cuts to bankers and cabinet ministers for the middle class. Is the Prime Minister confused about the reality facing the middle class? Where is the plan to respond to increasing student debt, or the lack of affordable housing, or the decreasing numbers of permanent jobs? These are the real needs of the middle class. But this government's economic policies seem to exist to trick the middle class. We will provide a real alternative for the middle class and the working class.
The honourable member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, on Friday night I attended an event at the University of Toronto highlighting the plight of Canadian resident Saeed Malikpour. Saeed has been imprisoned by the Iranian regime for over 8 years after he traveled to his birthplace to visit his dying father. He has been threatened with violence, been tortured, and humiliated. His basic human rights have been violated and continue to be violated. Sadly, this government, in its rush to legitimize this criminal rogue state, has forgotten this Canadian resident whose liberty has been stolen. In the past year, the previous Minister of Foreign Affairs did nothing to move his case forward. According to his sister Miriam, he's been able to keep himself busy with art and exercise, but the lack of action by this government is deafening. Mr. Speaker, as we wait to see whether the new minister, like her predecessor, will rush to appease Iran, she needs to remember Canada has always stood up against those who violate human rights. Will she commit to making the opening of relations with Iran contingent on the release of Mr. Malikpour?
The honourable member for Hull-Aylmer.
Mr. Speaker, more than 400 years ago, Mathieu d'Acosta was reportedly the first black man to set foot on what is today Canadian soil.
This, from forced to free migration, Black Canadians have contributed greatly to the cultural, social, and economic prosperity of Canada.
I rise today to encourage all Canadians to learn more about our country through the activities of Black History Month. Also, today, Mr. Speaker, a delegation of Black leaders will join parliamentarians of all political stripes so that Black people can continue to leave their mark in Canada and across the world.
Of proud Black Canadians will gather in my riding of Hull-Aylmer at the Museum of History to celebrate the long road from which we came and the even longer and wider roads ahead. Tonight, Mr. Speaker, we may celebrate the past, but let me assure you that the best is yet to come. À tous, un joyeux.
Happy Black History Month to everyone.
Oral questions, questions orales. The honourable leader of the opposition.
Mr. Speaker, over the weekend, research revealed that when a woman or girl is raped in this country, their chances of being believed or being able to pursue justice is inadequate. Mr. Speaker, I volunteered at a rape crisis centre, and I can tell you that one of the most difficult decisions a woman makes is whether or not to go to the police, and we need to make that decision easier. Will the Prime Minister commit to ensuring that RCMP frontline officers have the training needed to give these women and girls confidence to pursue justice?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to be clear. Gender-based violence and sexual assault is unacceptable, and we are doing everything we can to try and change something that is, as was pointed out, as we've known for a long time, is far too pervasive in our society. The way we support victims and survivors of sexual assault, the way we fight against gender-based violence, the way we change our institutions are all things that we are working on, not just with the Minister of Status of Women, but indeed all of government in an approach to make sure that we put an end to this.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it's an uncertain time for our economy and an anxious time for our workers. The U.S. President is looking to renegotiate NAFTA. And by cutting regulations and lowering taxes, the Americans are putting their companies and workers at a competitive advantage over ours. The Prime Minister's current plans to raise taxes and increase regulations will send our jobs south. Will he change course in the budget?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have lowered taxes for the middle class by raising them on the wealthiest 1%. We've put more money in the pockets of 9 out of 10 Canadian families by giving monthly child benefits that are not taxable and more generous than what the previous government did by not doing sending child benefits to the wealthiest families. We continue to look for ways Canada can create good jobs by engaging in the global marketplace, create opportunities for our young people, and create the kind kind of economic growth that Canadians didn't have for too many years under the previous government.
The
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Three-quarters of everything we make and sell goes to the United States. And the Prime Minister keeps saying everything will be okay. But the truth is, millions of jobs are being targeted by the U.S. administration. Our farmers, our forestry workers, and our steel manufacturers. When will the Prime Minister show us a plan to protect our workers?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, for the past months, we've been engaging with the new American administration to highlight that, yes, millions of Canadian jobs depend on close relationship with the United States, but also millions of American middle-class jobs depend on close relationships, trade relationships with Canada. That 35 different American states have Canada as their #1 export destination. Our economies are integrated like no two countries in the world, and the fact is we are going to continue to defend Canadian jobs, defend opportunities for the middle class on both sides of the border, and create a better future for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the U.S. administration, as we know, will cut bureaucracy, taxes to try to stimulate their economies. We can talk about what happened over the last year, but they haven't given the kind of results that they expected because there were no full-time jobs created. What will be the Prime Minister's real plan for the future? Not what they did in the past, but now with the new administration in the U.S., what are we going to do? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have been in contact with the administration for the past month to highlight the integration of our two markets, to show just how many jobs, millions of jobs on both sides of the border depend on open trade between our two countries. We're going to continue to work strong to create opportunities for small and medium-sized businesses in Canada, for large corporations, for success in innovation, research, green energy. We know that Canada faces large challenges but has many benefits for the future, and that is what we're working on. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, an internal note from the new administration's transition team has stated that Canada and the U.S. are far from an agreement on softwood lumber. We know that the U.S. needs to import wood. They aren't self-sufficient. They need 30% of wood imports in order to build their homes, to keep their carpenters, electricians, plumbers working at home without... So why can't we get that message out? We know. Why? It's because the government can't explain to the U.S. that they need this wood. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Since we came to power 15 months ago, each time I've met with the American president, we talked about that important issue. And in recent months, with the new administration, we have continued to underscore those issues. Good jobs in the country that come from the forestry sector. We're going to continue to work with the Americans on this important issue to ensure that jobs in our communities can remain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We all remember when this Prime Minister, hand on heart, looked longingly into the eyes of Canadians and promised them all that he'd be different. He wasn't like the old Liberal Party, promising anything to get elected, but then once in, betraying that very promise. Whatever happened to that guy? We hardly even got to know him. All the evidence shows that proportional representation not only ensures that every vote counts, it helps elect more women and encourages parties to work together in the national interest. So when will he finally stop all the fear-mongering and admit what everybody knows to be true, that the only reason he broke his promise to Canadians on electoral reform because it wasn't in the interest of the Liberal Party?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we took this issue very seriously, consulted broadly with Canadians, talked about this issue, saw the extent to which there are very many strongly held divergent views on this issue. We worked very hard on this, but it's clear there is no consensus, there is no responsible path forward, and that is the decision that we made.
The Honourable Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
You know, you'd think the Prime Minister would at least have the decency to blush when he's breaking his promise to Canadians so blatantly, and he could at least take that slightly smug look off his face, because the way I was raised, Mr. Speaker, that when someone breaks their word to Canadians, they find the courage to apologize, which this Prime Minister is yet to do. Just 8 weeks ago, I'll quote the Prime Prime Minister. I make promises because I believe in them. And on consensus, he said this: I've heard loudly and clearly that Canadians want a better system of governance. After such obvious deception, how can anyone believe this Prime Minister ever again?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians want improvement in their democracy, absolutely, and that's why we're moving forward on many things to repeal sections of the Unfair Elections Act brought in by the previous government, why we're making sure that we're protecting from cybersecurity attacks, why we're moving forward in many ways to improve our democracy. But on changing the way we vote in elections, it is clear there was no consensus. There are strongly held, highly divergent views. There was no responsible way to move forward, and so we are looking for other ways to improve our democracy.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont, La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, I quote, I made promises on these issues because I believe in them. Canadians spoke out loudly and clearly. They want a better system of governance, a better way of electing our governments, and I'm committing to 2015 being the last election with the current electoral system. Canadians entrusted us with difficult duties. They don't expect us to give up when things get difficult. No, I'm sorry, but I was raised to do better than that. Who said that? The Prime Minister on December 2nd. Has he forgotten about the way he was raised? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I was raised to keep in mind the best interests of this country, to serve them well the way they deserve to be served. And that means growth for the middle class, helping people who are working hard to join it. Yes, it also means improving our democracy. And we went forth with a number of things that we're going to do to improve our democracy, but the reality is that when it comes to election reform, there is clear that there was no consensus and there's no responsible path forward with that commitment. The Honourable Member for Rosemont, La Petite Patrie.
Something burning, don't worry, that's just the pants of the Prime Minister are on fire.
Since the Prime Minister went back on his word with respect to election reform,
Order. Order, 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 order. Members are certainly entitled to ask difficult, tough questions, but they know they can't do indirectly what they can't do directly. So I invite the honourable member for Rosemont Petite Patrie to rephrase his question.
No. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je suis bien.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree that I'll reformulate my question. Since the Prime Minister went back on his word with respect to election reform, there's been a great deal of outrage. That's right. People have the impression that they're trying to pull one over on us. People are saying, I'm never going to vote Liberal ever again. Normal. But what's more worrisome are these young people who voted for the first time last year who's saying, I'll never vote again because I'm disgusted with politics. Was that the Prime Minister's plan, to increase cynicism among our young people? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as regards young people in this country, we're doing things that have never been done before, be it increasing scholarships for post-secondary education, not being required to repay their student loans until they've got an income of $25,000 a year. We're changing the way that we prepare our young people for the future, and that is what young people are talking to me about when I meet them, when I visit with them, or when I take their questions.
Last year, I filed an order paper question asking if Finance Canada had an analysis of the impact of the carbon tax on low-income families. The department responded with nothing, suggesting it had done no such analysis. However, a note to the Deputy Minister of Finance obtained through Access to Information refers to a table that estimates the impact of the carbon price, quote, across earnings groups. That table is broken down by income quintile. However, all the numbers are blacked out. Why is the government blacking out and covering up the impact of its carbon tax on the poorest Canadians?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to talk about the impact of the taxes that we've actually reduced on Canadian families. I'm pleased to talk about the impact on Canadian families of the introduction of the Canada Child Benefit. Those specific numbers are important So for the single family with the reduction in middle class taxes, $330 more for that person this year. For the family, $540 in reduction in taxes. For the families, the 9 out of 10 families that got the Canada Child Benefit, on average $2,300 more per year after tax. These are very important measures, and we know that together with the efforts we're making on the environment, we can make a real difference for Canadians.
The honourable member for Carleton.
The measure of a society is how it treats its most vulnerable. That's why I asked how it is, Mr. Speaker, that this carbon tax will impact on the poorest Canadians. At first, the government said no such data exists. And then they said it exists, we just don't want to tell you what it says. That's the current position of this government, that they want to keep secret from Canadians, the most vulnerable Canadians, those with the least, the impact of this heavy new carbon tax on heat, hydro, gas, and electricity. Is that what they said when they is that what they meant when they promised they wanted to help those trying to join the middle class?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we meant exactly what we said, that we want to help those trying to join the middle class and those in the middle class. That's why our policies have been specifically directed to help those that are most vulnerable in our society, to help middle class Canadians to be in a better situation. We've done it in a myriad ways. We've done it through tax reductions. We've done it through the introduction of the Canada Child Benefit. We've helped lower income and middle income students to have 50% more money for grants for university, and we've helped those most vulnerable in our society, the seniors who are below the poverty line, with a 10% increase in the guaranteed income supplement for single seniors. We are making a real difference, Mr. Speaker, in particular for those most...
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, for more than 2 months, the Conservatives urged the government, called on them to not increase taxes on health and dental insurance. And tomorrow, by way of a vote, the House will be able to side with us. But we're not out of the woods yet, because there are many other things that the government's looking at with its voracious appetite. Pension income splitting, for example. For us as Conservatives, this is not negotiable. Can the Minister of Finance, because pension income splitting affects 2 million people in this country, can the Minister give us a guarantee that he will not be changing this essential and important aspect in the next budget? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, in Budget 2016, we started with our program to improve things for the middle class and to improve the situation of those trying to join it, with measures to help Canadian families. We are going to continue along those lines in 2017. It will be very important. We will find ways of improving the situation for the middle class, and in our budget we will have some very important measures and initiatives for them.
Sure. The question was crystal clear, yes or no. But again and again, the minister dodged the issue. Mr. Speaker, this is the House of Commons. This is not the Los Angeles Dodgers Stadium here. Answer to that. So the question is quite clear again, in English this time. So can the minister indicate this House that 2.5 million Canadians will not be touched because the government do not intend to cut the pension income splitting? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure how much more clear I could be. Our first budget reduced taxes on Canadians, helped middle-class Canadians, helped those most vulnerable. That is our program. So as we move forward with our budget 2017, which I remind you is not actually today, we will be talking about how we can actually continue in our efforts to help Canadians, to help middle-class Canadians, to help those most vulnerable. It will be a meaningful continuation of our agenda, important for Canadians across this country.
Honourable Member for South Surrey White Rock.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Last week, the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed that the Liberals were shortchanging communities across Canada by $9 billion in infrastructure. And 96% of the announced projects were not under construction. Now we learn that construction companies are shutting down, and the CEO of Keystone Excavating said 2016 was the worst year we've ever had in 35 years. The projects are not being built, the jobs are not being created. Will the minister commit today to getting the money out before the spring construction season begins, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr.
Mr. Speaker, we have approved more funding in the last year than the previous government did in 5 years combined. 1,200 projects with a combined investment in partnership with municipalities and provinces, $14 billion together. And almost 60% of those projects are currently underway, creating opportunities for Canadians from coast to coast to coast. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, here's the Liberal logic. They send Canadians money to various programs and they say, it's just like the budget, it'll balance itself. Mr. Speaker, that's not how things work. After having announced with great fanfare $13.6 billion for infrastructure in 2016, now we're learning that the Liberals only invested $4.6 billion. Mr. Speaker, my question is simple. What happened to the over $9 billion that was supposed to go to all of the municipalities across the country?
Infrastructure. Well, Mr. Speaker, let me quote some figures. 83 projects for British Columbia with combined investment of $2.4 billion. 57 projects for province of Quebec with combined investment of $1.5 billion. 127 projects for province of Alberta with a combined investment of $4.2 billion. And the list goes on, Mr. Speaker. As I said earlier, we have approved more fundings for provinces and municipalities in the last year than the previous government did in 5 years combined.
Honourable Member for Essex.
Mr. Speaker, an internal U.S. briefing note indicates the Trump administration will target Canada's dairy supply management system and our softwood lumber industry. Instead of assuring Canadians that jobs in these key sectors will be protected, the Liberals have sent Brian Mulroney to act as Canada's intermediary. Mr. Mulroney is the architect of the flawed NAFTA deal, and just last week he called for the elimination of supply management. Will this government stand up to Trump and fight for Canadian jobs, and will they commit today that supply management will not be on the table?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government fully supports our dairy farmers and our supply management system. In fact, Mr. Speaker, it is our party that fought hard to implement supply management, and I can assure this House that we will protect and defend it. Canada's supply management system is a model for the world. I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, with the investments this government is making in the dairy industry and the manufacturing sector in the dairy industry, there's a great future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Maskinongé. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals asked Brian Mulroney to start a dialogue with the Trump administration to renegotiate NAFTA. In 2014, the former Prime Minister made a speech and he called for supply management to be dismantled. Last Friday, there was a similar speech where he said that we should draw inspiration from Australia and New Zealand in that regard. Mr. Speaker, Canadians want supply management to be defended. Can they confirm today that they will defend our supply management system and justify why they're sending a Conservative who won't defend...
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's hard to say it much clearer. We consulted the dairy farmers and the dairy processors around this country for the last number of months. We invested $350 million to make sure that the dairy farmers and the processing sector is innovative in this country. We, the Liberal Party, worked hard to put the supply management system in place, and this government will make sure that we support the supply management system. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Well, Mr. Speaker, everywhere the Liberals go, they create chaos and corruption. The Ontario Liberal energy policy has devastated investment in Ontario. It's gotten so bad that even rich Liberals can't stand it any longer. We learned that the federal Ag Minister's chief of staff is turning her back on Ontario. She's building her new egg operations in Quebec because energy costs are half as much. With this kind of impact on agriculture, why is the Prime Minister forcing Kathleen Wynne's disastrous energy policies on the rest of Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I answered this question many times in this House. My chief of staff is a very well-recognised lady, well-respected in her community, honoured in her community.
I hope that, and I'm sure that this member does not want to indicate to this House or to this country that my Chief of Staff does nothing but promote agriculture in this country.
The honourable member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Well, Mr. Speaker, chaos and corruption follow them. The Grain Commission is an important part of Western Canadian agriculture, overseeing grain quality. It's always been run by appointees who knew and understood agriculture. Now the Liberals are making it a dumping ground for patronage. The latest appointment is noticeable only for his lack of qualifications. Lonnie McQuaig's credentials are he knows the public safety minister and he's a failed Liberal candidate. Why is the minister putting Liberal patronage ahead of Western Canadian grain producers?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
As my honourable colleague is well aware, and this House is well aware, that this government took a new approach to Governor and Council appointments. And we are putting in place new Canadian grain commissioners that will benefit the sector, stand up for grain farmers, and deliver results to the industry. My honourable colleague is well aware who was appointed. He also was well aware how qualified the people there that are appointed, and will do nothing but be an asset to the Canadian Grain Commission. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised an open appointment process. In that spirit of openness, the Minister of Justice has appointed guess who to the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, why none other than her former Chief of Staff. So, by openness, did the Prime Minister mean open to Liberals and closed to everyone else, or is this just another Liberal promise made and another Liberal promise broken?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I take very seriously the appointments process and the fact that it should be and must be open and transparent. My former Chief of Staff has been appointed to the Human Rights Tribunal because she is entirely qualified to fulfill that position, and I look forward to her contribution to the tribunal as we move forward.
The honourable member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, when they aren't throwing money out the windows on useless renovations or giving grants to Canada 2020, the Liberal Party does what it always does, rewarding its friends. We've recently learned that the Ministers of Justice and Agriculture were quick to give two important partisan appointments to Liberal friends, a former Chief of Staff and a defeated Liberal candidate. Mr. Speaker, when will this government finally stop putting the interests of the Liberal Party ahead of everything else and finally get down to work for all Canadians?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as you know very well, and as all Canadians know, we have committed to a more open, more transparent appointment process. We are proud of the process that we have undertaken. Canadians are able to apply for these positions. They are openly declared so that all Canadians can participate, and we are proud of the appointments we are making, and I'm sure the member knows very well that they are good appointments here to serve Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Député de Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot.
Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot. Mr. Speaker, a University of Ottawa study shows that over the next few years, the provinces will not be able to maintain current service levels if they accept the funding proposed by the federal government in terms of health care. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has also sounded the alarm because healthcare costs will continue to rise because, among others, the aging population. Will the government finally give provinces the funding they need to provide citizens with the services they need? Honourable Minister of Health.
Government is investing in health care in numbers that have never been seen in Canada before. We made an offer to provinces to grow that investment in the Canada Health Transfer such that it will outstrip provincial spending, it will outstrip GDP growth, and it will outstrip the rate of inflation. In addition to those increases in the Canada Health Transfer, we are investing $11 billion in home care and mental health. This will support Canadians and make sure that Canadians receive value for money spent.
Honourable Member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, this report shows that the federal government's health care offer falls far short of the province's increased costs. We're seeing the direct impacts of that underfunding, like the horror stories coming out of Surrey, British Columbia, where a quadriplegic home care patient is forced to choose between a meal and a change of clothes. Why have the Liberals broken their promise to properly fund health care? And what the heck ever happened to the Liberals' campaign commitment to immediately invest $3 billion in home care?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, it is well known that Canadians pay some of the highest per capita costs for health care in the world. It's important that Canadians get value for the money invested in health care. That's why we are taking a new approach. In addition to increasing the Canada Health Transfer, we are giving targeted investments in the areas of home care and mental health so that people like the woman that the member has referred to will get access to home care, and we will transform health systems across this country.
The Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Dollard. Mr. Speaker, Safety Awareness Week begins today. This is an opportunity to ensure that all Canadians feel safe. Unfortunately, after the tragic attack on the Quebec City Cultural Islamic Centre, we can understand that many Canadian Muslims and other minority groups feel vulnerable. Can the Minister of Public Safety tell us what the government is doing to help these communities to protect themselves? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we all share the anguish experienced in Quebec City by our fellow citizens.
The deadline for our security infrastructure program, which helps communities protect against hate-motivated crimes. This is on top of other enhancements to the program to cover a greater variety of security measures and to make it more widely accessible. Most importantly, Mr. Speaker, we must all continue working together to foster respect, solidarity, cohesion and inclusion. There is no license for hate in Canada.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk. The Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, it was revealed that the Super Hornets the Liberals are purchasing are going to be operational for only 12 years. It's unbelievable that the Liberals would waste $7 billion on an aircraft that they've already planned to mothball. As we know, finance is not the Liberal government's strong suit, so let's give them a hand. That costs over $300 million per jet. That's a colossal waste of taxpayer money. That's a colossal waste of time for the Royal Canadian Air Force. So why won't the Defence Minister quit wasting time, resources and money and move immediately to an open competition?
Honourable Minister of National Defence. Our government does not want to risk our ability to be able to respect both Canada's commitments, and that is why we have decided to purchase an interim fleet of Super Hornets to replace our aging CF-18s. We will ensure that in both the short and the long term, our requirements will be met, and we will launch an open and competitive process. The Honourable Member for Charles-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to have to tell the Parliamentary Secretary that it is proven that this is a needless purchase and there's no capability gap. We're paying between $5 and $7 billion, and this was confirmed by Boeing. That is highway robbery. It is going to cost us between $277 and $388 million per aircraft. Can the Minister of Defence confirm that this is indeed the best deal for Canadians? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. We will not wait in order to risk depending on an aging CF-18 fleet. We need a fighter jet as soon as possible that will allow us to depend less heavily on our fleet of CF-18s and to continue to respect our international and national commitments. Thanks to these 18 new Super Hornets, our soldiers and Air Force people will be able to defend on a more reliable set of jets.
Liberals' approach to replacing our fighter jets makes absolutely no sense at all. The sole source Super Hornet will cost up to $7 billion for only 18 jets for only 12 years of service. This week, Boeing's competitor announced a price drop, which puts the F-35 at the same price as the Super Hornet. Will the Liberals finally listen to our Air Force, our defence procurement experts, and start an open competition today to replace our aging CF-18?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Government of Canada is in discussions with the United States government and Boeing concerning the possible purchase of Super Hornets. These discussions will allow us to determine whether Boeing can offer an interim solution within a proper deadline and at an acceptable level of capability for Canada to ensure that Canada can get the best price-quality ratio. During these discussions, we will not comment on the budget for now. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, not only is the cost astronomical, we're talking about between $277 and $388 million per aircraft, but in addition, the Minister indicated in a written response to the House that these Super Hornets may only be operational for 12 years. That's expensive. That's between $23 and $32 million per year per jet. There are no savings to be had here. Why does the government insist on continuing on this path instead of launching an open process to replace our CF-18s? Other than Boeing, what's the advantage for Canadians in this deal? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. The Canadian Armed Forces do exceptional work to manage the risk linked to respecting our engagements to NATO. But it is unacceptable to manage this level of risk, according to the government. The current fleet of C-18s was bought in the 1980s, and it should have been replaced long ago. The government does no longer wishes to rely exclusively on an aging fleet of CF-18s, and that is why we must act now. The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Mr. Speaker, Katimavik is fighting for its survival. The program has educated over 35,000 young people and seeks reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous young people. If the Liberals continue to do nothing, the organization will close down in a few weeks. And yet the Liberals had promised a youth volunteer service during the campaign and in the last budget, but for the past 18 months, silence. The Prime Minister, who is also the Minister of Youth and former chair of Katimavik, will he finally provide emergency funding to save this program? The Honourable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the question from my colleague across. Helping young Canadians gain valuable work and life experience is central to the focus of this government. It is absolutely a priority. Our Prime Minister and the government are proud of reversing 10 years of cuts to youth programming by the past Conservative government. We continue to engage with Katimavik. Mr. Speaker, if I could take the opportunity, I want to recognize the work on this file by the member from Ville-Marie, Le Sud-Ouest, Ile-de-Sur. Who's done excellent work on this file. We'll continue to engage with Katimavik. Stay tuned. Hopefully we'll have a great resolution in forthcoming.
The Honourable Member for Regina Louvain.
Mr. Speaker, it's been over 3 months since the government's own deadline to fix Phoenix, and 7,000 cases from the original backlog still have not been fixed, leaving Canadians waiting to get paid. In addition, there have been 185,000 Phoenix complaints in the last 6 months. This government refused to delay implementing Phoenix until it was corrected. When will the government end this boondoggle and pay our federal employees properly and on time?
The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome my colleague's question. Resolving the ongoing service pay problems remains a priority for this government. That's why we have taken so many additional measures to respond in a quick manner. The reality is that we do have a number of outstanding issues. We are working very hard. We're working with our employees. We're working with unions to try and find a speedy resolution. But what we've encountered here are some complex cases, and we are now going to shift to focusing on those priority cases to get them resolved as quickly as possible.
Honourable Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, last week the Liberals told the House that Canadians would not be affected by the U.S. executive order on immigration. However, we've found out that Nexus memberships have in fact been revoked from all Canadian permanent residents with citizenship in any one of the 7 countries affected by the U.S. travel ban. I think that's affected. That would be the definition, Mr. Speaker. So when did the Minister become aware of this new issue? Was it after this assurance or before? And more importantly, what steps is he taking to stand up for Canadian interests?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, all Canadian citizens with a valid Canadian passport should be treated at the border in the same way as before the executive order. It's your passport, not your Nexus card, that establishes your status. Nexus is a discretionary program to expedite processing, and each country has the right to withdraw the privilege. There are about 1.5 million people with Nexus privileges. About 200 have been affected by the U.S. revocation. To the best of CBSA's information, none of them are Canadian citizens, and we're working with our American counterparts to make sure that all Canadians are treated fairly.
The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, that's not what CBSA told CBC on the weekend. And more importantly, when I asked the minister this question on Friday, he said, quote, if people feel that they have been unfairly treated by this process, there's an appeal process and there's an ombudsman. Canadians don't want an ombudsman. They want their government to stand up for their interests. So when will the Liberals stand up for Canadians and get these revocations reversed?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, what the honourable member doesn't seem to acknowledge is that Nexus on both sides of the border is a discretionary program entirely under the control of one government or the other, depending on which country you're in. We are in the process of making sure, to the very best of our ability and capacity, that Canadians are treated fairly in all circumstances, and Canadians themselves do have the benefit of the appeal procedure. They should avail themselves of that, but they can be sure that their government is fighting for them too.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, Syed Malikpour, a Canadian permanent resident, a computer programmer, was arrested on a visit to Iran in 2008 on trumped-up charges. After conviction on a confession obtained through torture, Mr. Malikpour was sentenced to death. That sentence, after protests by our Conservative government and human rights organizations, was reduced to life in prison. Now, the Liberals promised their muted criticism of Iran and reduced commercial sanctions would get results. Can the minister update the House on efforts to gain Mr. Malikpour's release and his return to Canada?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Consular Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my honourable colleague for his question. We're clearly concerned about the well-being of Mr. Malikpour. I had the opportunity to meet with his sister. I committed to her that our government is following his case with great concern. Obviously, most people, members of the opposite aisle, know that because of lack of diplomatic presence in Iran, this has been posing challenges for us. That's why our government is committed to re-engaging with Iran and make sure that we defend the interest of Canadians and we build on people-to-people relationship with Iran.
The honourable member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, since the beginning of 2017, the government has announced projects for drinking water and wastewater treatment under a bilateral agreement reached with Quebec. 2 weeks ago, 5 projects worth $6.4 billion were announced in Estrie, and 16 projects for $82 million were announced in Mauricie, and 19 in Montérégie, including in my riding. Can the government update this House on this program? The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, in collaboration with the Government of Quebec, we have approved 57 projects for a combined investment of more than $1.5 billion. Just today, we announced additional 3 projects for the region of Abitibi. These projects will provide safe, clean drinking water for the region. We continue to work with our partners to approve even more projects to grow our economy and create opportunities for the middle class and those working hard to join the middle class. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, we learned after Christmas that since gutting the Financial Transparency Act, the compliance measures, of course, the reporting rate has gone down. The minister had to know that was going to happen. It is no surprise. The National Post wrote that about 90 bands had not been fully compliant with the Act. And, of course, for the community members, that is 90 too many. It has been over a year. First Nations communities, 90 of them across this country, do not have access to basic information. When will the minister listen to the grassroots band members and respect them and enforce the Act?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Speaker, as I've said in this House many times,
First Nations, governments, and everyone want increased transparency and accountability. But we will achieve this through working in full partnership with First Nations leaderships and organizations. We are currently engaging First Nations leaderships, communities, organizations to identify a way forward that is based on the recognition of rights, respect, cooperation, and partnership.
The honourable member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
Mr. Speaker, the Canadian National Institute for the Blind must lobby each year for funding in the form of government grants. Given the crucial services provided by the CNIB, like making sure literature is available in accessible formats, stable, predictable, and ongoing funding is required. Funding would allow the CNIB to provide Canadians with visual impairments the programs and services to which they're entitled. Will the government commit to ensuring that funding for the CNIB will be in the next federal budget?
Honourable Minister for Sport and Persons with Disabilities.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for the question. I know she shares the passion for inclusion and accessibility for people with disabilities that our government does. Mr. Speaker, I've experienced firsthand the great work that CNIB does for the visually impaired community in Canada. I was proud to work with them over the last year to celebrate Canada's accession to the Marrakesh Treaty, and I'm proud of our government commitment of $3 million to ensure we can meet the demands for alternative format materials. Our government's disability program has been undergoing a transformation aimed at providing greater certainty and efficiency to organizations, and we are indeed exploring whether or not we can provide multi-year funding. Thank you.
Honourable member for Oakville North Burlington.
Like many ridings in Canada, Oakville North Burlington is made stronger because of its diversity. Our post-secondary institutions like Sheridan College in Oakville and De Groot School of Business in Burlington rank among the very best in the world, attracting students from around the world. However, our immigration system has made it difficult for those who wish to stay in Canada. Can the Minister please update this House on what the government has done to make it easier for international students to live and work in Canada?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member from Oakville, North Burlington for the question and for her hard work. Mr. Speaker, our government supports strongly the attraction and retention of international students to Canada. That is why we made changes to our express entry program that has made it easier for international students to stay in Canada. That has led to them creating economic growth, jobs and innovation, and spurring innovation in our country. I also want to take this opportunity to thank my officials for processing 367,000 international student visas last year, which is a 22% increase over the previous government. Thank you.
Honourable member for Banff Airdrie.
Mr. Speaker, if there's anything that Liberals are good at, it's breaking promises and wasting hard-earned tax dollars. They promised a deficit to pay for infrastructure, and while the deficit just keeps growing, there's still no shovels in the ground. Then they promised to balance the budget by 2019. Now it won't be until 2055. And we've heard them make promises of electoral reform, and then all Canadians got was a $4 million bill for a muddled personality survey. And so while Canadians are struggling to make ends meet, Mr. Speaker, what other broken promises can taxpayers be expected to foot the bill for?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I want to be clear that Canadians can expect this year in our budget, as they saw last year and as they'll see in years to come, that we will have a focus on helping them, a focus on helping those most vulnerable. We've demonstrated that so far and we'll continue to do that. A focus on improving the lives of middle-class Canadians through lower taxes, through more opportunities for themselves and their children in the future because of the investments we're going to make. That's what Canadians can expect, and we're pleased to be able to deliver for them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, on Wednesday, while all of Quebec mourned the victims of the Quebec City attack, the Washington Post published an article by J.J. McCullough, which was a vitriolic attack on the reputation of Quebec on the international scene. Here is an excerpt. And now, Canadians have good reason to observe that the province seems to produce an awful lot of lunatics prone to public massacres. Will the Prime Minister rise in this House right now and unreservedly condemn this attack against the Quebec nation?
Honourable
Minister of Canadian Heritage. The message in this article is unacceptable, and we denounce them. Quebecers, like all Canadians, are open and welcoming, and we saw that with the solidarity that was the outpouring of solidarity expressed after the attack. We are all responsible for denouncing discrimination and injustice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member from Okan. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister refuses to rise in his capacity of statesman and is encouraging, through his silence, like the Conservative Party last Friday, this tragic Quebec bashing. All of Quebec is mourning the people, the victims of this tragic attack. Other people are attacking Quebec's reputation. It's being tarnished and insulted, and neither the official opposition nor the Prime Minister will condemn this shameful rag. The Prime Minister is the self-proclaimed lieutenant of Quebec in his party, so how can he remain seated and in silence? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, what the opinion expressed in the Washington Post is unacceptable, and we denounce them vigorously, and that is also why we are convinced, like my colleague across the way, that we must absolutely denounce all form of injustice and discrimination, and that is also why we condemn this opinion and this article, and we will ensure that we support the motion presented by the Bloc Québécois. The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, despite the common front of the provinces, which represent 90% of Canada's population, the government insists on maintaining the Conservative cuts to health transfers and putting in place the NDP conditions. Along with the Government of Quebec, the Council of the Federation, the Conference Board of Canada, the PBO, and the University of Ottawa are concluding that to ensure the future of the healthcare system, Ottawa's contribution must rise at the same pace as the costs. Instead of causing the implosion of the healthcare system, will the Minister of Finance revisit his idea and reestablish the hike of 6% of the transfers? The Honourable Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, $11 billion has the potential to be transformational to improve the lives of Canadians, not only in terms of home care, but also in mental health care services. This unprecedented investment is in addition to the commitments made under the Canada Health Transfer, which will continue to grow each year and by almost $1 billion per year this year alone. And we will work with the provinces and territories to improve the healthcare system.
Brought to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Sandy Silver, Premier of Yukon, and an accompanying delegation. Tabling of documents. Order. I encourage members to take their conversations into the lobbies or elsewhere around Parliament Hill. If you hear my voice, please say shh. Thank you, colleagues. Tabling of documents. Dépôt de projet de loi émanant du gouvernement.
Introduction of government bills. Statements by ministers. Reports from interparliamentary delegations.
Reports from committees. The honourable member for Yukon.
Monsieur le Président, j'ai l'honneur.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor of tabling in both official languages the 19th report of the Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs. The committee signals that pursuant to Standing Order 91.1, subsection 2, the subcommittee gathered to